The train arrived at platform 4 with a tired sigh, as if it too had lived too many lives and carried too many stories. Arif stood a little apart from the crowd, hands buried in the pockets of his jacket, eyes fixed on the steel tracks that stretched away like unanswered questions. He wasn't late. He never was. Being on time was one of the few certainties he still trusted. This journey wasn't planned the way most things in his life had been. No color-coded calendar. No long-term goals, neatly broken into steps. Just a ticket bought on impulse at midnight, a small bag packed without thought, and a quiet decision made when sleep refused to come. He needed distance from the city, from expectations, from the version of himself that had begun to feel like a stranger. As the doors slid open, people spilled out with laughter, complaints, relief. Arif stepped inside the coach, found a seat by the window, and settled in. Outside, the platform buzzed with movement, but inside his chest there was only stillness. Until she walked in. Maya entered the coach with the kind of presence that didn't demand attention yet somehow claimed it. She moved quickly, scanning seat numbers, a faint crease of concentration between her brows. Her hair was tied in a loose ponytail, strands already escaping, as if they disliked being restrained. She stopped beside Arif's seat. "Excuse me," she said, holding up her ticket. "I think this is mine." Arif glanced at the number above the window, then at his own ticket. Same seat. He frowned slightly. "I'm pretty sure this is mine," he said, polite but firm. Maya leaned closer to check the seat number, her shoulder brushing his arm. "That's odd. Coach B, seat 27, right?" "Yes." They stared at each other for a moment, then at the tickets again. A small laugh escaped Maya before she could stop it. "Looks like the universe wants us to share," she said lightly. Arif didn't smile right away. He gestured to the seat beside him. "There's another empty one just there." Maya shook her head. "Window seats make me nauseous. Motion sickness. Trust me, you don't want to sit next to me if I'm about to throw up." That earned a reluctant smile from him. "Fair enough." She settled into the aisle seat, placing her backpack at her feet. As the train began to move, the city slowly peeling away outside the window, Maya exhaled deeply. "Finally," she murmured. "I needed this." Arif looked out at the blur of buildings. "You too." She tilted her head. "You don't look like someone traveling for fun." Neither did she, he realized. "Yeah," he admitted. "Me too." Silence followed, not awkward, just unclaimed. The kind that waits to see if it will be filled. Maya broke it first. "So, running away or running toward something?" He considered the question. "Running sideways, I think." She smiled. That might be the healthiest direction. They shared a quiet laugh, and something subtle shifted. Not attraction, not yet, but recognition. Two people on parallel edges of their lives briefly intersecting. Hours passed in fragments. A shared snack. A comment about the scenery turning greener. A story about a missed flight. A resigned confession about a job that no longer felt like his. Maya spoke of photography, of chasing light across cities, of a recent breakup she mentioned without bitterness, but with honesty. "I realized I was shrinking," she said softly. "And love isn't supposed to make you smaller." Arif nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle somewhere deep. He didn't talk about his own ending, not yet, but he felt seen in a way he hadn't expected. As dusk fell, the train slowed near a small station surrounded by hills. An announcement crackled overhead. "This is your stop," Maya said, surprised. "I didn't realize we were already here." She stood, slinging her backpack over one shoulder. For a moment, neither of them moved. "Well," she said, hesitating, "it was nice sharing a seat with you." "The universe did okay," Arif replied. She smiled at that, warm, genuine, and then she was gone, stepping onto the platform and disappearing into the crowd. The train pulled away, and Arif watched the station fade into darkness. He told himself it was just a moment, just a conversation, just a stranger on a train. But as he leaned back against the seat, he realized something had already changed. Some journeys don't begin when you decide to travel. They begin when two hearts cross paths, unexpectedly, and recognized the road ahead. The place Arif got off barely deserved to be called a town. It was a quiet cluster of buildings nestled between rolling hills, where the air smelled of pine and wet earth, and time seemed to move according to its own unhurried rhythm. The station had only one platform and a tea stall that looked older than most memories. Arif stepped down from the train with his bag slung over his shoulder, feeling oddly weightless. No one here knew his name. No one expected anything from him. That anonymity felt like a gift. He checked into a small guest house run by an elderly couple who spoke more kindness than words. His room was simple, wooden furniture, a narrow bed, and a window that opened onto mist-covered hills. He set his bag down and stood there for a long moment, listening to the quiet. That night, sleep came easily. For the first time in weeks, his mind didn't replay conversations or miss chances. Instead, it drifted back to the train, to a laugh that had surprised him, to eyes that held stories without demanding answers. He shook the thought away. Strangers stayed strangers for a reason. The next morning, the town revealed itself slowly. Arif walked along winding roads, past fields where farmers worked in companionable silence, past children cycling recklessly downhill, their laughter echoing through the valley. He stopped at a small cafe overlooking a river and ordered tea, letting the warmth seep into his hands. That's when he heard her voice. "Please tell me you didn't steal my table." He froze.
Slowly, he turned.
Maya stood there, camera hanging from her neck, hair loose now, catching the sunlight like it had made a deal with it. She looked just as surprised as he felt. "You're," he started. "The window seat guy," she finished, grinning. "No way." For a second, neither of them moved. Then they both laughed, the sound spilling out easily, like something that had been waiting. "I didn't think you were getting off anywhere near here," Arif said. "I could say the same." She gestured around. "This place barely exists." "Exactly why I picked it." She nodded, understanding flickering across her face. "Same." They sat together, conversation resuming as if it had only paused, not ended. Maya showed him a few photos on her camera, sunrises caught mid-breath, old faces etched with stories, fleeting moments framed forever. "You see things differently," Arif said. She shrugged. "I notice what people usually rush past." That hit closer than he expected. The day unfolded without plans. A shared walk by the river. Lunch at a roadside stall. Silence that felt companionable instead of heavy. With each passing hour, the coincidence of their meeting began to feel less accidental. They talked more openly now. Arif told her about his life in the city, his job in architecture, designing buildings he no longer believed in, the engagement that had ended not with a fight, but with a realization that love alone couldn't fix incompatibility. "We were good people," he said quietly. "Just not good for each other." Maya listened without interrupting, without trying to mend anything. "That's harder than hating someone," she said. "At least hate gives you closure." He looked at her then, really looked, and wondered how someone he'd known for less than 2 days could feel so familiar. As evening settled, they reached a hill overlooking the town. The sky burned orange and pink, clouds stretching like soft brushstrokes. "This is my favorite part of traveling," Maya said. "That moment when the day admits its ending." Arif sat beside her, knees drawn up. "You sound like you've said goodbye to many places." "And people," she added. Something unspoken passed between them. That night, back in his room, Arif lay awake staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. "Maya, I forgot to ask, how long are you staying?" He stared at the message longer than necessary. "Arif, I didn't decide." A few seconds passed. "Maya, good answer." The days that followed blurred into something neither of them named. They explored hidden trails and old temples. Shared stories that hadn't yet hardened into scars. Sometimes they walked side by side without speaking, and it felt like the most honest form of communication. Arif found himself laughing more easily, thinking less, feeling more. But beneath the lightness, something fragile was growing. One afternoon, rain trapped them in a small bookstore. The power went out, leaving the space bathed in dim natural light. Maya ran her fingers along the spines, reading titles aloud. You believe in fate? She asked suddenly. He considered it. I believe in moments. What we do with them, that's the part that matters. She smiled softly. That sounds like someone who's been disappointed by fate. Or someone who's learned not to depend on it. Their eyes met, and the air between them shifted, subtle, electric, undeniable. Neither of them moved closer. Not yet. Because both of them knew this place was temporary. And temporary things can be dangerous. That evening, Maya received a call. Her expression changed as she listened, brightness dimming just slightly. Everything okay? Arav asked. She hesitated. I might have to leave sooner than I thought. His chest tightened, though he tried not to show it.
Oh.
She met his gaze. I don't want to. The truth of it settled between them, unspoken but loud. Some journeys intersect only briefly, and sometimes that makes them unforgettable. The rain didn't stop for 2 days. It wasn't the dramatic kind that arrived with thunder and urgency, but a steady, patient drizzle, as if the sky itself had decided to linger. The town responded by growing quieter. Shops closed early. Paths turned slick and reflective. Time seemed to stretch, elastic and uncertain. Arav liked it. Rain made things honest. It stripped the world of distractions, leaving only what was essential. He and Maya found themselves spending more time indoors, small cafes, covered verandas, his guest house common room where an old radio played songs no one remembered the names of. They talked. And when words failed, they sat in silence that felt full rather than empty. But something had shifted after a phone call. Not distance, if anything, they were closer. But awareness. A shared understanding that what was growing between them was real enough to hurt. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows like impatient fingers, Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through her photographs. Arav leaned against the wall, watching her. Not the images, but the way she tilted her head when concentrating, the slight furrow of her brow. You look at people like you're afraid they'll disappear, he said without thinking. She glanced up, surprised. Do I? He nodded. Like you're trying to memorize them. Maya set the camera down. That's because they do disappear. There was no drama in her voice. Just fact. My parents moved a lot when I was a kid, she continued. New cities, new schools, new friends. I learned early not to get attached. Photography became my way of keeping things. Arav felt a quiet ache bloom in his chest. And, does it work? Sometimes, she said. But pictures don't hold warmth. Or voices. Or the way someone looks at you when they think you're not paying attention. Their eyes locked. The moment stretched, delicate and dangerous. Arav stood up abruptly, crossing to the window. He needed air.
Distance. Control.
This, he began, then stopped. Maya didn't push. She waited. This feels familiar, he finally said. The closeness. The timing that's all wrong. She rose slowly, coming to stand beside him. I know. He laughed softly, without humor. I told myself I wouldn't do this again. Neither did I. Silence settled between them, heavy now. The truth hovered unspoken. They were standing at the edge of something neither of them had planned for, something that asked more than they were sure they could give. The next morning, Maya didn't show up for their usual walk. Arav told himself not to read into it. Everyone needed space, especially now. Yet the absence felt louder than any argument could have. He spent the day alone, wandering paths they had walked together. Every place carried her echo, a laugh by the river, a comment at the cafe, a shared silence at the hilltop. By evening, he couldn't take it anymore. He found her at the edge of town, sitting beneath a large banyan tree, camera resting in her lap. The rain had stopped, leaving the world freshly washed. I thought you left, he said. She looked up, eyes tired. I thought about it. They sat side by side, close but not touching. I'm scared, Maya admitted quietly. Not of you. Of what this could become. Arav swallowed. Me too. She hugged her knees. Every time I've stayed, I've lost something. Or someone. And every time I've left, he said, I've wondered what would have happened if I hadn't. She turned to him then, really turned, and there was no hiding in her gaze. What do you want, Arav? The question landed like a weight. He could say the safe thing, the reasonable thing. He could say I don't know and walk away intact. Instead, he said, I want to stop running. Her breath caught. They didn't kiss. Not yet. Because sometimes the space between two people holds more meaning than touch. That night, Maya knocked on his door. He opened it, heart pounding. I'm leaving tomorrow, she said softly. There's an assignment in another city. I can't postpone it. Arav nodded. Okay. She studied his face, as if searching for something. Come with me. The words hung in the air, fragile and terrifying. I can't promise anything, she added quickly. I don't even know where I'll be next month. But I know I don't want to say goodbye like this. Arav's mind raced, his job, his life, the responsibilities waiting back home, the fear of repeating old mistakes, and the quieter fear of letting this go. I need time, he said finally. Maya's smile was sad but understanding. I know. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. The embrace was gentle, but it broke something open inside him. He breathed her in, aware of how temporary this moment might be. Whatever you decide, she whispered. Thank you for seeing me. When she left, Arav stood in the doorway long after it closed, heart heavy with possibility. Some choices don't announce themselves loudly. They wait. The morning Maya left, the sky was painfully clear. No rain, no mist, no dramatic farewell weather to soften the moment. Arav stood at the small bus stop with his hands clenched into fists, watching as Maya adjusted the strap of her backpack. She looked lighter somehow, resolved, but her eyes betrayed her calm. I hate that it's so ordinary, she said. Goodbyes should feel bigger. Maybe ordinary is kinder, Arav replied. Less pressure to say the perfect thing. She smiled at that, then hesitated. Did you decide? He shook his head. Not yet. Maya nodded, swallowing something unspoken. That's okay. The bus arrived with a low rumble. She climbed the steps, then turned back. Hey, she said softly. Wherever you go next, don't disappear. I won't, he promised. The bus pulled away, carrying her out of sight, out of reach. And just like that, the town felt empty. The days after her departure were quieter than Arav expected, and louder. Without Maya, the silence wasn't peaceful. It echoed. He found himself replaying conversations, analyzing pauses, wondering whether he should have said more, done more, chosen faster. He stayed longer than planned. He extended his leave from work, avoided calls from friends, let the town hold him while he tried to understand what had shifted inside him. At night, his phone glowed like a small, fragile lifeline. Maya, this city never sleeps. I miss the hills already. He stared at the message before replying. Arav, do you miss the place or the company? The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Maya, both. But the company more. His chest tightened. Their messages became a rhythm, unspoken but steady. Photos from her assignments. Voice notes sent late at night when exhaustion stripped away caution. Conversations that drifted from mundane to intimate without warning. Yet something held them back. They never spoke about them. Not directly. Eventually, Arav returned to the city. The noise hit him first, the constant hum of traffic, ambition, expectation. His apartment felt smaller than he remembered. His life, neatly arranged and painfully predictable. At work, he sat through meetings and presentations, nodding at designs he once would have defended passionately. Now they felt hollow. You seem distracted, his colleague Rohan observed one afternoon. Just tired, Arav lied. But it wasn't exhaustion. It was absence. He found himself noticing couples everywhere, hands brushing, shared laughter, quiet understanding. He wondered if love was always this inconvenient, arriving precisely when you were least prepared. One night, after a particularly long day, Arav opened his laptop and booked a ticket. He didn't overthink it. Some decisions lose their power if you give them too much time. Maya was in a coastal city when he arrived. She didn't know he was coming. He stood outside the small gallery where her photographs were being exhibited, heart pounding harder than it had in years. Through the glass, he saw her, laughing with someone, eyes bright, alive in a way that both relieved and frightened him. When she stepped outside for air, she nearly walked straight into him. For a second, she simply stared. Then, "You're not real." "I am," he said, smiling nervously. She laughed, a short, breathless sound, and then she was hugging him, tightly, as if afraid he might vanish. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I stopped running," he said. They walked along the shore that night, waves crashing softly beside them. Maya told him about her work, the constant movement, the loneliness that crept in during hotel stays. "And you?" she asked. "What did you leave behind?" He exhaled. "The life I was living by default." They stopped walking. Maya turned to face him. "This isn't a promise, Arav," she said. "I can't give you stability. Or certainty." "I'm not asking for either," he replied. "Just honesty." She studied his face for a long moment. Then she leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was careful, two people acknowledging something true. When they pulled apart, Maya rested her forehead against his. "This could hurt," she whispered. "I know." They stayed together for days. Then weeks. But reality doesn't disappear just because love shows up. Assignments took Maya away again. Arv had to return to the city. Their time became measured in countdowns and departures. Love grew, but so did questions. How long could they do this? Who would compromise? And at what cost? One evening, after a tense phone call about missed plans and growing distance, Maya finally said the thing they'd both been avoiding. "I don't know if love is enough," she said quietly. Arv closed his eyes. He had once believed the same thing. And yet, here he was, willing to risk everything to prove himself wrong. The fight didn't begin loudly. It began the way most painful things do, with exhaustion. Arav was sitting on the edge of his bed, phone pressed to his ear, listening to Maya breathe on the other end of the line. It was late for him, early for her. Different cities, different time zones, different lives stretching the same fragile thread. "You forgot," Maya said quietly. "I didn't forget," Arav replied, rubbing his forehead. "I got stuck at work. The meeting ran late." "You said you'd be there," she said. "You said you'd call before the exhibition opened." "I know. I'm sorry." Silence followed. Not the comfortable kind they had once shared, but the heavy kind, loaded with everything left unsaid. "This keeps happening," Maya finally said. "Plans change.
Calls get missed.
We keep apologizing, but nothing actually changes." Arav's chest tightened. "What do you want me to do?" "I don't know," she admitted. "That's the problem." He wanted to say, "I'll quit my job." He wanted to say, "I'll follow you anywhere." He wanted to sound brave and decisive and certain. But promises made in desperation often break the hardest. "I'm trying," he said instead. "I know," Maya replied. "And I hate that it still hurts." The distance began to carve itself into their conversations. What once flowed now stumbled. Laughter became rare. Words were chosen carefully, like stepping around landmines. They still loved each other, but love, Arav was learning, didn't make things easier. It made them sharper. One night, after a particularly strained call, Maya didn't text him goodnight. He told himself she was tired. The next morning there was still nothing. By the third day, the silence felt unbearable. He called her. No answer. Panic rose in his throat, irrational and overwhelming. He sent messages, short at first, then longer, then raw. Finally, she replied. "Maya, I need space." The words sat on the screen, cold and final. Arav wandered the city that day, moving through crowds without seeing them. Every street reminded him of choices he hadn't made, of safety he had once mistaken for happiness. He stopped at a cafe and watched couples argue, reconcile, drift apart. Love, he realized, wasn't fragile. People were. That night, he opened his laptop and stared at his resignation letter. It had been half-written for weeks. He thought of the buildings he had designed but never believed in. The promotions that felt like hollow victories. The life that looked successful from the outside and empty from within. And he thought of Maya, of the way she chased light, even when it led her away from certainty. He closed the laptop. Not yet. Maya spent her days pretending she was fine. Work helped. Photography demanded presence. Framing moments left little room for overthinking. But nights were harder. Hotel rooms felt colder. Silence pressed in. She loved Ariv. That truth hadn't changed. But love that asked her to wait, to pause her momentum, to anchor herself, it terrified her. She had built her life on motion, on freedom, on leaving before she could be left. One evening, while editing photos, she came across an image she didn't remember taking. It was Ariv, sitting by the river in the hills, looking away, thoughtful, unaware. Her chest ached. She realized then that she wasn't afraid of losing herself. She was afraid of losing him. They met again unexpectedly, this time in neither of their cities. A mutual coincidence. A shared conference. A hotel lobby filled with strangers and unfinished conversations. They stood facing each other, uncertain. "You look tired," Ariv said. "So do you," Maya replied. They walked.
Talked.
Avoided the center of the problem until it forced its way in. "I can't keep doing this halfway," Maya said finally. "I can't love you through screens and countdowns." Ariv nodded slowly. "Neither can I." They stopped walking. "So, what are we doing?" she asked, voice breaking. Ariv took a breath. "I'm choosing you." Her eyes widened. "Ariv." "I don't mean following you blindly," he said quickly. "I mean choosing a life that actually feels like mine. One where I don't keep asking you to wait." She shook her head. "That's too much to give up for someone. Not if that someone helped me realize I was already lost." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't want to be the reason you regret your life," she whispered. "And I don't want to wake up one day wondering why I was too afraid to fight for something real." They stood there, both trembling, not from doubt, but from the weight of truth. Love wasn't asking them to sacrifice everything. It was asking them to sacrifice certainty. That night, they lay side by side, not touching, staring at the ceiling. "Promise me something," Maya said. "Anything. Whatever happens, don't disappear." He turned toward her. "Neither do you." She reached for his hand. For the first time in a long while, they slept peacefully. But dawn would bring consequences. And choices, once made, cannot be undone. Morning arrived quietly. No dramatic light. No sudden clarity. Just the slow return of consciousness and the steady reminder that choices made in the dark still waited to be faced in daylight. Ariv woke first. He lay still, listening to Maya's breathing beside him, even and soft. For a moment, he let himself pretend this was normal, that this was how life was supposed to be. Waking up next to someone who felt like home, even in unfamiliar places. But reality pressed in gently, insistently. They couldn't stay suspended between cities and promises forever. When Maya stirred, she didn't smile right away. She blinked, oriented herself, then turned toward him. "Morning," she said. "Morning." They lay there, neither rushing to speak, both aware that this conversation would shape everything that came next. "I've been thinking," Maya began slowly, "about what you said, about choosing." Ariv nodded, bracing himself. "I've spent my life believing that staying meant losing," she continued. "That roots would trap me. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was never about staying or leaving, just about why." He listened, heart pounding. "I don't want you to give up your life for me," she said. "I want us to build something that belongs to both of us." Ariv exhaled, tension loosening in his chest. "That's what I want too." They sat up, facing each other now. "I resigned," he said. Her eyes widened. "You did what?" "Not impulsively," he added quickly. "I gave notice. I've been planning it for a while. You just helped me admit it." Maya searched his face. "And what comes next?" "I don't know exactly," he said honestly. "But I know I don't want to live a life that feels borrowed anymore." She smiled then, a real one, edged with disbelief and hope. I might be offered a long-term project, she said. 6 months. Maybe more. One place. Arif's heart skipped. Where? She named the city. He laughed softly. I already like it. The transition wasn't seamless. They argued. They compromised. They learned the rhythms of sharing space after so much time apart. Arif freelanced at first, rediscovering his love for architecture by designing spaces meant to be lived in, not just admired. Maya worked relentlessly but differently now, no longer running, no longer afraid to pause. They found a small apartment with windows that caught the morning light. On the walls, Maya hung photographs from their journey. The hills, the rain, the coast, a candid shot of Arif laughing when he thought she wasn't looking. Some days were hard. There were moments of doubt, fear, old instincts clawing back. But there was also choice made again and again. One evening, months later, they returned to the town where it had all begun. The same station, the same tea stall, the same hills watching quietly. They walked the familiar paths, hands intertwined. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't shared that seat? Maya asked. All the time, Arif replied. I think we would have been fine. Just incomplete. She leaned her head against his shoulder. They climbed the hill at sunset, the sky blooming into color once more. This was where it scared me, Maya said softly. And this was where I realized I didn't want to leave, Arif replied. They stood there, no longer afraid of endings. Because some journeys don't end. They evolve. Love hadn't solved everything, but it had taught them how to walk forward together. Not as two people losing themselves, but as two hearts choosing the same road.